Hey everyone. So for the last few weeks I've been working on this really cool Salesforce Labs app that calls out to the tooling API and gets an org security health check data that it sends to a central org for analysis. It's really important to us as part of the app that the scheduling process is simple for sending that data, and we want the user to have full control over that. And so we thought it'd be a great use case to try and use scheduled flows to then call an invocable method for us to process the data. Now, unfortunately, we learned that scheduled flows runs the automated process user who doesn't have a session ID. And so we thought we might just write a little Lightning Web component that could schedule the jobs, manage the jobs, and maybe allow the user to reschedule them. And it ended up being much easier than we thought. So popping over to our IDE, we can see here that we have an Apex class for managing the job scheduling and interaction with our component. There are quite a few classes in here for managing the process, testing that first job to make sure that it works. But what we're really going to focus on today is scheduling that first job. Here you can see that the schedule job method accepts the parameters of a cron string for scheduling and the job name that has been set on the component. And here you can see the delete scheduled job method just has an input of cron job name. And we're going to run a system.abort job after we go and query for that cron trigger ID based on the name. Looking at our web component, you can see here we're using a Lightning input time field to go ahead and get the schedule of that cron job. Now, we only need the hour and minute at the moment because we're scheduling this job on a daily basis. Now, in the controller, you can see here in the connected callback, we're going to go ahead and get the currently scheduled cron job so that we can see if it's already scheduled, and if so, what time it's scheduled for. We're going to take that result and we're going to make sure that we can read that as a time for our Lightning input field. In addition to that, we also want to be able to run the first job to test it out from the method, and we want to then go back and poll for that job status to make sure it's completed. But more importantly, before we can do anything, we need to get time from that input field. So on change of the time field, we have the handle time change method that's going to be tracking changes in that field. So taking a look at our component, we have two sections at the moment, one for scheduling the job and one for managing the currently scheduled job. As you can see here on our time field, if we change that value, it's going to log the time for us, and you can see there, it's just logging out just a standard time format. What we want to do is be able to take that time format and convert that into a cron string that is readable by the system. So let's take a look at that string and how we can turn that time into a cron string for us to then pass back to Apex. The format we're looking for are the seconds, the minutes, the hour, and then we can disregard the rest for the time being because this will give us our daily schedule. So in order to get this into the format we need, first let's assign that time to a variable that we can use. And then let's convert that into array by splitting the array by the colon. We can see that that will give us our minutes, that will give us our hour, and that will give us our seconds. Now let's just go ahead and log that and see what that looks like in our component. Back in the component, you can see if we change the time, we're getting our timestamp and then we're getting our array. And so it's working perfectly. We've got our hours and we've got our minutes that we can start utilizing within the component. Normally, if you wanted to isolate an element of the array, you could just let hour equal index 0 of the time array, and the minutes could equal index 1. There's actually an easier way of doing this, though, by using destructuring. Now, destructuring works by doing really what it says on the tin, and destructuring that array into a set of properties. And you just define your properties within these square brackets. We have hour, minutes, seconds. We'll just say equals the array. And it will literally break the array down by index into those properties. And so if we just log out our hour and our minute and our seconds, let's go and take a look at what that output looks like. And so as we change the time in our input field, we can see in the console that the array has done what we thought it would, and it's destructured itself into those properties. Now, all we need to do is use those properties to generate our cron string. And to do this, we're going to use an ES6 feature called template literals. Now, template literals allow you to generate strings that are constructed using expressions. And so let's generate our final cron string here. Now, it's super important to note that our template literal is enclosed by backticks, not single quotes. I've made that mistake many times, wondering why it's not working. But otherwise, it's like we're writing just a string. And so we've got our backticks. Let's add in our seconds. So just a 0, because we know that that's going to remain that way. Then, to get our property in the string, we just say $, curly brace, and then our property name, so minutes. And then we'll do the same for hours, so $, curly brace, hours. And then we'll go ahead and add in the rest of our cron string. And let's go ahead and just log that out and go and check out the results in Salesforce. And so back in Salesforce, you can see as we change the time, that's brilliant. It generates the cron string for us right now. So we can now take that. So I've gone ahead and assigned that to the property that's picked up by the job scheduler. And so let's go ahead and try and schedule our job now. And as you can see, that's come back successful. It's then gone and queried the database to make sure that that has been scheduled. And so now we can delete the job, it will clear that out and abort the job. And at the same time, we can reschedule it for a different time. Now, the last thing you always want to do is go in and see if you can simplify the code a bit more. And you can see here, I've taken out some of the log statements. I've gotten rid of some of the arbitrary assignments that we were doing, and we've made it much cleaner. Now, to get a peek at what the final product looks like, this is our multi-org security summary app that we've built. And if we go into the setup config, we can click on the manage sync button and see a very similar UI where we can see the sync that's already scheduled, we can reschedule it, and then we can select a new time to then reschedule that job. And so the admin or the user always has access to that scheduler. Thank you for watching this video, everyone. Hope you found it as informative as I did. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at StefanWCG, and all the code from today's quick take is available on GitHub. Thanks.
Thanks for watching. If you learned something, be sure to like this video. If you want to get more content like this pushed directly to you, click subscribe and that bell to get notifications.